is an interesting story that a lot of you may not know about, that in Michigan, to renew your professional license, you need to have mandatory training. And some of you would think that makes sense when it comes to if it's related to your profession, but there is so-called DEI training, implicit bias, in Michigan. And I was contacted by Greg because you have some information about this, not necessarily yourself, but you said your son?
Yes, that's right. My son. He's having to go through the training himself. He talked to me. He's on the autism spectrum, and he's running into some requirements for relicensing. And he says, "Dad, I don't understand why I would have to go through this. I'm not biased. I'm not racist. Why do I have to take this stuff just to renew my license? I'm already doing the job." And so we sat down and started covering this stuff. And it's kind of alarming, the things that you're forced to admit throughout this training process, all of which he says it doesn't apply to him. He doesn't think that way. That's not him.
So in order to renew his license, it's in Michigan, it's mandatory. He has to take, does he have to take implicit bias training, that specifically?
Yes. It has been mandated for most of the medical occupational licensing in Michigan. I don't have the exact count, but I think 20 different licenses, give or take a couple.
Yeah, I know. I think trainers, several other positions as well. I'm trying to look right here. Healthcare professionals. And it came up during COVID, at least in Michigan, I think, is when it came up. And I think people forgot about it, but it's now in place, and it's here at least now for good, it looks like.
Yes, a lot of people are running into it now because their licenses are needing to be renewed, and it's now a requirement. You are unable to renew it unless you take the implicit bias testing.
Okay. I'm reading something. The state public health code defines implicit bias as an attitude or internalized stereotype that leads to unequal treatment based on a person's race, ethnicity, or one of many other characteristics. But you're saying for your son, he was really more so confused, right?
Yes, he was confused. He's evaluating this test, and there's obvious right answers, but it doesn't apply to him. And then when it gets to areas of the quiz that makes him admit that he in some way is biased and how he should act, he's saying, "Dad, this is not me. I'm not biased. Why do I have to answer this? Why do I have to say that this is the case?" And many people would say, "Well, yeah, then just answer the right answer." But that's not the point. This is hindering his ability to get relicensed, for him to take a test that not only it doesn't apply to him. He's not racist or misogynistic. He doesn't have this implicit bias, unlike the professionals like to say everybody has. Yeah. It's just a roadblock for people to renew their licenses easier.
Now, many people, there are safeguards in place where he works, or anybody in the workplace. There are already laws against, I don't want to say bias, but racism. You can't, you can't discriminate against certain people. So those laws are already in place. And I'm sure where he worked, if he did exhibit those behaviors, he wouldn't be working there anymore, probably.
No, he would be out of a job in a quickness. He works around people. He works under the cameras. If those cameras have microphones, he's got supervisors. He's constantly being monitored, as is all the other many other medical professionals, but especially in his situation, in pharmacies. It's going to be very known very quick if he is discriminating against someone.
Yeah, exactly. Am I able to show the actual document of that?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is a verbatim of the training. And it's important to know, too, he has to pay out of his pocket, right, for the training?
Yes, he has to pay for this.
Can he choose, what company he goes for, or how does that work? Any idea?
Yes, I think there's multiple providers that the state has approved to provide the implicit bias training.
Okay.
So you get to pick, your own, but from everything that I've seen, you have to pay for it, no matter which one you choose.
You were saying, I think it was slide 31, and this is a verbatim of it right here, acknowledge our own implicit bias. And this is the speaker that was speaking right here.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, we will provide you with a link for a video. This is one health crisis. Basically, it gives examples, it looks like. So acknowledge our implicit bias. What do you take from that?
Well, I take from it that we don't have a choice to be biased or not. We just automatically are, based on the color of our skin, the person that's taking this test. We just automatically are biased, and we don't have a choice in the matter. We just simply have to acknowledge it and comply.
And obviously there are racist people out there.
Absolutely.
And they're horrible individuals. But this is more about, with licensing in Michigan, you don't think this is necessary. Is this just another hurdle when it comes to businesses or even employees, making it tougher for the workforce in Michigan?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, I think the problem is even worse than that. Yes, it does make it more difficult to obtain licensing, but the testing that, it's like medical professionals should be taking, that should replace something like this, is to help people, or to help these professionals improve on patient experience, or data security compliance, dealing with HIPAA, dealing with people's medical records, what to do, what not to do. And yes, they do receive training. They could receive more advanced training. You can't be too safe. And, understanding in healthcare, there's a lot of AI trends that are coming up. There's a lot of documentation out there that people need to know, like with medical billing, whether it's prescription or in a doctor's office. They're now starting to use AI for coding in the medical bills, which can result in some problems. That's the areas that we need to be focused on training. And to add insult to injury with regards to implicit bias training, all the studies out there that I've seen really show that implicit bias training doesn't yield any results. They're saying that people that go through this implicit bias training very rarely does it modify their behavior. So you have a state that's mandating that, these professionals, to get their licenses, take IBT training and pay for it, also that it can yield in no results. It doesn't work. And there's a lot of studies out there to show that it doesn't.
Does he also have to take that kind of train? Is it mandatory training for his job? Does he have any other kind of that with the state?
The state requires him to do pharmaceutical type training that's, industry specific, and everything, looks above board on that stuff. Outside of that, he has to take training that involves child trafficking, human trafficking, things like this, identifying it, things to notice, which are great. Those we absolutely need. And we need more awareness. I want to say this, we need more awareness on discrimination and bias and things like this, but not in the capacity that's being provided, where it's a forced program to take before you can get your medical license, or renew your license in the medical field.
Yeah, and as you were saying, does it even help? I mean, even if does it help? I mean, I've talked to many people over the last week who have taken this, and they're honest with me, and they'll literally say, by the way, did he have to go somewhere, or could he do it virtually? Was he allowed to do it?
Yeah, he was able to do it virtually.
A lot of people I've met, it sounds like he actually listened and paid attention. Some people just turn on the laptop and go do their laundry or whatever and don't even pay attention.
Yeah, no, I mean, he takes his job serious. He takes everything that he does very seriously, which is why it was so concerning for him. Because, maybe you or I, we could look at this and say, I'm not this. This doesn't apply to me. Whatever. I'll click the box. I'll say the right answers and move on. But not him. He takes it very seriously, because he's having to admit things that simply doesn't apply to him.
Wow. So he took it personally.
He did take it personal.
Yeah. Is the state, when they did it, it was during COVID, and I actually I'm going to play this right here, if you don't mind, 40 seconds. This is when it first came out. I remember I was working at the TV station watching the governor. Let me play this real quick.
COVID-19 has had a disparate impact on people of color due to a variety of factors, and we've got to do everything we can to address this. There's no doubt that our healthcare workers have been heroes, bearing risks and saving lives. The evidence shows that training and implicit bias can make a positive difference. So today we are taking action to improve racial equity across Michigan's healthcare system. In fact, this training has value for everyone in every profession, which is why I have arranged training for myself, the executive office, and state government.
Yeah, so I remember that at the time, and I didn't even think it's on the books. You know, I think a lot of people thought at the time, oh, it was just for COVID. No, it's now permanent on the books. I think a lot of people forget that COVID was used, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, but COVID was used to implement a lot of stuff.
Oh, yes. And, they had, I guess they're, they look to, I say they, it seems like that our state looks to California a lot lately to get their ideas. And that I don't think is necessarily a good thing. So they were one of the very first to implement this. And I believe we were the second or third state to implement IBT training.
Wow. Well, that's what I just wanted to do this to talk to how these things affect people. And your son, he, as you're telling me, he's a good kid. He likes everybody. I don't know him. I've never met him, but it personally made him feel attacked, kind of, right?
Yes, very much. Very much. Yeah. It's unfortunate. And in 2015, the Obama administration kind of put out a call to action to reduce some of the regulatory hurdles for people who are getting their licensing, even gave grants, specifically to identify unnecessary licensing criteria. And it seems like we're going in the exact opposite direction.
Yeah. And yourself, it would seem like Michigan's population it's been going up for the last year, but people are leaving Michigan. And is it your opinion, things like the red tape, the trouble with whatever license you have or housing or whatever it is, getting a teaching license, it just makes it tougher. And maybe one reason why people are just like, I've had enough.
Yes, without a doubt. I think that we've all heard the horror stories, all the red tape. Michigan, it seems, is one of the more difficult states to deal with when it comes to licensing. And the mandate has been out for us to, fix that problem. Same thing with transparency in the government. Sure. And we don't seem to be making any progress in these areas. In fact, it just seems to be getting worse.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I was going to say if the governor could hear you speak, but I interviewed her once, but after that, I wasn't allowed to interview her ever again. I don't think she didn't like me. But what should state lawmakers focus on? Because we have Democrats, we have Republicans. Michigan is so very close. Just a couple seats could make a big difference. What should both sides think of when it comes to stuff like this? It seems like some of them are not thinking about the real consequences of what they do.
Right. I think if I could talk to both of them, I would tell both sides of the house they need to work together to make it easier to keep our skilled professionals. Michigan seems to be hemorrhaging skilled labor and skilled professionals, licensed professionals. We're losing them to other states. And I think one of the primary reasons is all the regulatory red tape, whether it's directly related to, their licensing or it's even insurance related. I know that's a topic for another day, but we need to make it easier for people to live in Michigan. And right now it seems to be, we're making things harder.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate it. That's what I wanted to talk about and get this out there because I think some people may not like bringing this topic up, but I think the more you talk about something, the better it can't be a negative, I think, just to put it out there.
We need dialogue.
Yeah, good dialogue, not people like CNN yelling at each other on a screen.
That's why I'm very thankful for what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And if you have any updates, let me know. If you need anything, let me know. But thank you so much. And tell your son I said hello. And one day I'd like to meet him.
Definitely. Will do for sure. And thank you for having me on.